Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, brother and sister. Let us to start our events today by Surah Al-Kitab Al-Fatiha. Okay. Today, inshallah, our title today for our monthly research group talk is the current trend and beyond of the passive optical networks, PON technology. The speaker today is Dr. Mohammed Shahril Salleh, is the principal researcher at the TM. He received his PhD degree in the Faculty of Electrical Engineering from University of Technology, Malaysia. He has published over 30 proceedings and journals in his filed over 20 patents and 4 patents granted. Shahril has done extensive research in the area of the fiber to the home since 2004. His research interests in the PON, GPON, and next generation of the PON in both physical and transmission centralization initiatives such as the PCE PON work group under the IEEE in 2012. He is currently the representative TM Berhada in the FSAN, technical and ITU technical workings group since 2013. As a part of the FCN working group, he also involved in development a new roadmap of the FAS standard roadmap to support network generation PON technology. Our talk today will be taken almost around 1 hour. Our lecturers will be given almost 45 minutes, and we leave the 15 last minute to for question and answer. For audience, if someone need to ask, please write the message. Then by the end of the talk, we will be given the time to do that one. Without any further delay, let us welcome for the Dr. Mohammed Shahril to give his talk. فليتفضل مشكور.
Alhamdulillah, thanks. So Bilal, I think it's a great introduction. Thank you very much for the introductions. Shukran jazilan. Okay. So
thank you.
Sorry, I hope that my line's clear here because I mean I can't hear quite. There's a breaking in your voice, Bilal. But I hope that I think the rest can see my presentation, and if please stop me if there is an issue in terms of the either audio or probably the presentation slides later. Please let me know if there is an issue. Okay.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Okay, so I think you can see the slide presentations. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you. I think thanks everyone. I think first of all, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all of us. I think thanks to Dr. Shannan for inviting me today. I think Dr. Shannan is one of my old friends, my colleagues. We have quite good memories together in the UPM. So I'm very happy. At least I would like to share some things. I'm not the best in this area, but probably that based on my experience, 20 years experience in TM R&D, and a few kind of like activities in the standardizations. I hope that I can share some things. So I'm not good in the lecturing. So please let me know if you want to have more clarifications. I know we have like 15 minutes Q&A after the sessions, but I'm okay if you want to stop me. So I think feel free to ask. So today's title, The Current Trends and Beyond in Passive Optical Networks Technology. So before this, today I think I called the Dr. Shannan and asking about what's the expectations today. So I think most of our audience is the students of optical communications. So I'd like to touch a bit on the in terms of the technicals and more on the trendings. So first of all, I would like to share about my company, Telecom Malaysia Research and Developments. And then I think we need to know in terms of what's our government initiative towards the broadband, especially that we have like a Jendela initiative previously. That I think there's a few years that the government tried to push to make sure that our broadbands and in terms of the fixed or wireless in Malaysia. And then we probably touch a bit on the trending in terms of the fixed broadband, especially on the fixed broadbands, not in Malaysia, just Malaysia, but I think in all around the world. And then on the standardizations, and then what's the next technology and the requirements of and the architecture. So okay, so Telekom Malaysia is subsidiaries of Telekom R&D is subsidiaries of Telekom Malaysia. Just recently, we've been part of the MMU. So currently, the Telecom R&D will manage all the research activities. So in the industry and also for academic research. So like academic research is previously managed by MMU, and most of the center of the research right now is under TMR&D. So we combine. So now we have like both kind of like research. The research that more on the industry research and also more on the academic research. We incorporate in 2001, so become a center of innovation for TM Group itself. And then we doing some like the developing and also doing some commercializations of the products. Our strategic roles is to bring the new technology innovations to the Malaysia, and mainly to contribute to the nation in terms of to building the digital knowledge of economies. So this is just a brief about the structure lines of business in Telecom R&D. So we have kind of like exploratory research. So basically this research is based on the 3 years technology roadmaps. And then based on this research, the outcome probably that more on the IPR, certain publication, standardizations, and probably the awards. So this is quite in terms of the fundamental. So which is that something that we think that there is something based on our hypothesis that maybe the certain technology that we can propose. So we start with the explorations, probably a few months, and then to make sure that certain theory that before we go for the real project, so we can have a clear or better understanding on that one. Then after that, so we have another recall, the co-creation with industry. So co-creation meaning that project that we work with the industry that mainly we have the custodians. So our main custodian is Telekom Malaysia, and we also probably that can have like external custodian. So I think the good thing, because Telekom R&D, we have like kind of like the initiative from the government that they call the double tech deductions. So meaning that any external parties that want to have kind of like the research activity, so they can engage with us because we have kind of a license from the MIDA. So meaning that that company can have like to enjoy the double tech deductions when they spend into the research activities. And another segments beside the research, so we try to push our products and try to commercialize the products. So either the domestic market and also for the global market. So we have like a few solutions that already deployed and then used, and certain I think a few products that also deployed outside Malaysia. I mean used by a few the players in not just in Malaysia, but I think a few countries outside there. So mainly this is about the R&D. I think this is how our business is. So basically, I'm working here almost like 21 years sekarang ni. So before we go further, I would like to share about the national agenda we call the Jendela. So Jendela stems from the Jalinan Digital Negara, which is that everybody, I mean all of us, actually we can go to this, you can just browse into the report like Q3 report. This is the latest report from the Jendela. So basically the Jendela is the government initiative to push that how they want to make sure that in terms of the coverage for the fixed wireless and fixed and wireless connectivity, and then how the user itself that can benefit from the technology that we have. Kalau kita right now kita tengok that Jendela they are pushing for the 5G, so that part of the journey of the Jendela itself. So the main agenda for this Jendela is for example, like they try to cover in terms of the digital infrastructure and the coverage mapping. which is that to bring the gigabit access broadband. Gigabit is up to the 1 gigabit per second. So that's the national aspirations. And in terms of the coverage, they try to make sure that at least minimum 100 megabit per second of the mobile broadband coverage all nationwide. And also in terms of the resources and national aspirations, so they want to make sure that especially on the 4G, so 100% coverage. So I think these are the three main the big agenda from the our governments. And then they craft into a few phases. So they have like phase 1 and also phase 2. So based on this, I think this diagram, I think taken around last a few years at that time. So in terms of the premises part meaning that the connectivity sampai ke kita kata up to the each home lah, we call the premises passes. So if like 2020, the maximum certain premises that have the connectivity, especially on the fiber, is around 5 million, and they are trying to pushing by 2022, which is last year, is around 7.5, and they targeted in terms of the total numbers of in the phase 2. I mean, beyond the 2022 can reach up to 9 million. So I can say that almost like 90% are covered with the fiber connectivity. And in terms of the 4G coverage, so in the phase 2, say they try to make sure that at least 97 or 96.9% covered by the 4G. And I think they really want to have like 100% coverage on the 4G. So that's the part of their aspirations. And then also in terms of the mobile, if currently on the 35 megabit per second, so I think soon the minimum connectivity on the mobile, at least we need to reach up to 100 megabit per second. And at the same time, they also pushing the 5G. So we can see that last few years more on the planning side, and then also the few deployments of the 5G infrastructure. So we can see that moving forward that they'll go aggressively on the 5G deployments. So far okay? Tak laju ke? I think so far okay?
Okay, Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, yeah. Please stop me if you want me.
So good.
All right. Okay, thank you.
All right.
So okay, this is based on the latest report. I think I taken is based on the Q3 last year. I think this is the latest report from the MCMC. So we can see that based on their target, they try to push the phase 1, and on the phase 2, I think the same thing based on the previous initial 2020 dia punya target or aspirations. So and then kalau kita tengok, if we can see here, in terms of the overall performance by this Q3 I think last year, which is that they already reached in terms of the jendela home passes, but to support with the fiber connectivity is around 7.5 million size. So that I think they reach almost like quite the good numbers. And in terms of the mobile broadband speed, so they reach 35 megabits per second with the 97% of the 4G coverage. So in terms of the overall digital infrastructure performance, so I think this is the numbers of home passes that they covered through the fixed broadband side, especially on the fiber. So I think that's last September on the 2020 to 2022. So they have additional like 2.5 million premises passes. And they also have, in terms of the mobile broadband coverage, especially on the 4G, so they have like 36,000 new base stations that they upgrade. And then there are a few 4Gs, new 4G base stations, and they have like almost like 839 satellite connectivity. So I think this is based on this report is taken from the, it's not based on the single provider, but based on the all providers in Malaysia. All right, okay, so in terms of these, the details in terms of different numbers of provider, in terms of their planning, and in terms of the percentage of the completed the fiberizations. For example, like if you can see they plan numbers of the fiber connected to each of the home passes. TM, for example, last year they achieved almost like 256%. So that's I think quite good achievements. I think this is because of the COVID. issue, and then in terms of the demand of the connectivities getting high. So I think in terms of I think TM itself, I think we are struggling, and then the last few years, and to make sure that, so we try to ahead of the target, because we know this is just a target, but actually the real requirements come from the user itself beyond that the target numbers. So I think this is the second. I think if in terms of the connectivity is the 5 times, so they achieve, like based on their plan, they achieve 100%. So these the few numbers are Maxis, Allo. Allo is a new players that comes in. I think this is I think they are collaborate with the part of the TMB punya anak syarikat and subsidiaries. All right. Okay. So in terms of the point of presence, in terms of the fiber hub, they call the presence of point, or we call POPs, a new fiber optic hub. So we can see that almost in Malaysia, almost like 78.5% all the fibers ataupun point of presence in our region is dominated by the Telecom Malaysia, and the rest, I think 18% is from the Maxis, and the rest is the VC Telecoms. So you can see that still in Malaysia, because we are probably the GLC, we are part of the government sectors, and then we inherit based on previously we call the Jabatan Telecoms, and then move to Telecom Malaysia and become the semi-government. So we basically their own I think majority share of the fibers in Malaysia. Okay, for in terms of the 5G rollout performance, we can see that I think the biggest numbers 5G rollout is in Selangor. I think based on the plan, they try to achieve at least 57% the coverage or Selangor covered by the 5G. So I think compared to the rest, I think the second one is the Kuala Lumpur, and then the third one, the second one is on the Johor area. So this is in terms of the performance of the 5G rollout. Right. Okay. So basically, that's just I just give you some at least you know what's happens I think in our countries in terms of the connectivity, especially fiber connectivity and also the wireless connectivity. And that because that's part of the government agenda, they're really pushing to make sure that whatever that we enjoy today, and so whether that the technology that we have being supported, and then what's the next future that to support the more in terms of the applications coming in the future. So, but if you can see that this is the trend, that's the trend in Malaysia, but I think the same goes trend to all around the world. So kalau tengok, you can see that this the list of the players or operators, major operator like Dutch Telecoms, Telecom Italia, Orange, British Telecom, China Telecom. So basically, in terms of the demand, speed, they are moving to the video, and then we can see that there is a coming 5G. We can see that the new technology of SDN and this come in. So these big players already put some effort in terms of the technology investment to make sure that they are able to support this new coming technology in their networks. And same goes to the Telecom Malaysia. So in terms of we can see the trend of the internet traffic itself start from the 2005, last 10 years, and then we have like 3G and 4G. And then at that time, we still have a few copper, and then the fiber starts to come in, and then they start to grow in terms of the like for example, like video, we have like 4K video. At this time, like 2016, 2017, in terms of the home connectivity, at least the requirements goes up to 100 megabit per second. This is the world trends. And then in terms of the application, they call the fixed mobile convergence. So they have like both in terms of the fixed wired and wireless. So this part of the technology they start to put into the considerations. And then after that, in terms of the traffic, I think they goes by a few years back. After that, 2018 to up to 2020. And we can see that the trending on the video itself, they introduced in terms of the 8K video. And at that time, we start to hear about the VR, virtual reality, and augmented realities videos. So which is that this, based on this application, the requirements of the bandwidth getting bigger and bigger, and then at that time the 1 gig becomes for the high-end user that probably that have this kind of applications in their home. And then if you can see next after that 2021 and goes to the next few years after this, so we can see it become like 8K and VR probably that become another new commons application, and then 1 gig is become the basic requirements to the home. And then we can see in terms of the trendings of application, and then we can see the pre-5G and then goes to full 5G, and then in terms of the SD and NFV, this is for the wholesale networks, meaning that for the enterprise market, it's not for the customers. So basically, this is the trending that we can see based requirement of the application. They start from the application. So based on the application, we try to understand what kind of the bandwidth, what kind of the limitation that our current network and where we currently and how we want to move forward in terms of the technology to support this application that we have right now and from the probably in the future. So this is something young. If we can see that, I think 2020 is taught us a lot of things. So something that we cannot imagine previously, and how our future is changing. So I think because of the COVID itself, so suddenly the broadband becomes the enablers to the world, to the function. So if we can see that previously, like myself, we have like a conference, so we need to go there. Even a meeting, we need to be in the office. But now with the COVID, everything's changing. So we have like Teams, and currently we also use the Zoom. That's the new ways that how we need to survive. But with these requirements, they change a lot of things in terms of the way that how we design our networks. So like, for example, like during the 2019, the numbers of people start working from home increasing up to 1,700%. So meaning that the demand for the fiber connectivity at each homes getting bigger. And I think previously, kalau kita tengok, if we can see that the trending of the bigger bandwidth is just at the office or enterprise segments, and home probably that at least you can have like 30 meg at that time, probably at maximum we can go to 100 meg. But when people start working at home, so the traffic, the increasing and the quite dramatic. And then if we can see that in terms before 2017 to 2022, at least the global internet traffic grows 3 times. So this global traffic, and the busy hour internet also grow almost like 5 times. So this is we can see that because of the changing in terms of the way that we working, the way that how we move, we do our works, the change. I think they give the impact in terms of the internet connectivity. So in terms of the application, and we can see increasing in the numbers of application, for example, like 22% increasing in terms of Netflix, and they have like Peloton. I think this is something like exercise applications. In terms of the membership growth, the new business, I think they grow quite good. It's up to 60%, and then application like Microsoft Cloud Service, I think 775%. I think growth. And then especially if we today we use Zoom, actually the Zoom numbers of participants, I think growth up to almost like 3,000%, I think since 2019. So the world shifted because of certain things happened. But good thing is the technology is ready, and we are able to work like normal with the support of the technology, with the different technology on the access itself. So that's part of the trending in terms of the world itself, in terms of the bandwidth requirement, in terms of the application, in terms of the way that how we try to appreciate the bandwidth connectivity. So before I move further, I would like to just give some introductions on the standardization activities that I believe that where the technologies come in, that it's very important for us to understand that like beside the technology, who is behind that drive this technology. So if we can see that, I think probably that most of us that aware that quite familiar with the IEEE. So and then maybe the certain I think students know about the IQT. IEEE probably that because of we browse our papers into the IEEE journals and so on. But we also have like IQT that governs the standards, especially to the telco world. And then we have a few others organizations that to support these two standard body, like for example, like FSAN, the Full Service Access Network, which is that this incorporated with the few operator, the major operator all around the world, and also major vendors, and to gather the requirement from the operator, which the operator get requirement from the user, and then we push these requirements to the standard body. Okay, and then we also got a few requirements come from the forum itself and a few like conference. So based on these requirements and then the input from the a few bodies, and then the standard body need to make sure that, okay, for example, like we predict that next few years the bandwidth or new applications come in and they require the certain numbers of bandwidth. So the body like IQT body and also the IEEE body need to make sure that the technology that we have right now being standardized, so all the vendors and operator can use the common technology, common product, so to make sure that we have a good numbers in terms of the we call the volume, because the technology we cannot, even though you have the very best technology, but if you don't have the volume, so you end up with the technology that's very expensive. So to make sure that we have a good numbers in terms of the product cost itself, so we need to make sure that all around, we have the global market, meaning that all operators need to have the same, almost the same technology, which is that we can produce the same components. Okay, so this is some of the standard roadmap that drive by the FSAN to support the IQT. So we can see that currently we have like GPON technology. So I think this GPON technology standards already defined this technology in 2004. So so this technology, they carry a maximum bandwidth is around 2.5 gig on the downstream side. So downstream side meaning that the bandwidth from the exchange to the home. And then after that, I think on 2009, so they drive they call the SGPON technology, which is the SGPON is based on the 10 gigabit per second PON, which is that we can enjoy 10 gig speed connectivity from the exchange up to our homes. And then after that, 2009, we developed a new standard we call the next generation PON technology, which is that this technology is based on the multiple wavelength. And because the previous GPON and SGPON is based on the TDM PON, meaning that TDM domain single wavelength. So they try to multiply a few wavelength, so to have like 4 times 10 gig or probably that up to 8 times 10 gig, so they can have like multi lambda technologies come in. But at the time, the market itself is not ready to the very high speed network. So then they try to go down and then try to have like symmetrical 10 gigabit solution. So they expand the SG-PON technology to become the SGS-PON technology on 2016. So which is that for this SG-PON is they have like symmetrical, meaning that the downstream is 10 gig and upstream 2.5 gig. But now for the SGS-PON, so they have the symmetrical speed, which is that both upstream and downstream is based on the 10 gigabit per second. And then they try to forecast in terms of the next few years, that in terms of the demand, so in terms of SGS-PON plus, so either at 25 gigs or probably at 50 gigs. And NG-PON 2 plus is based on the single wavelength based on 10 gig. Now single wavelength multiplied with beyond than 10 gig, probably that 25 gig or 50 gigs. And in terms of the trending, so we need to make sure that when we draft this technology, we support the industry trend, which is that to support the SDN heavy, 5G, IoT, and then in terms of the convergence network. So this is part of the evolution. If you can see that based on drive by the IQT and IEEE, I think almost similar, but I think based on this diagram, they show that we have currently in our market, we have 2 players that provide this kind of PON technology. So one is driven by the IEEE and one is based on the GPON, or we call the IQT. So I think this EPON and GPON, they have their flavor of preference based on certain regions. on the 2004, most of the dominance region that use the EPON is at the Asia part, especially China, Japan, Korea. And the GPON's driver is more on the European country like US, Europe. And then after that, we can see that the technology is changing. And then in TM Malaysia, Telkom Malaysia, we use the GPON technology. We choose GPON technology because we try to inherit a few technologies that we have previously based on the ATM base. And so that's why I think TM choose GPON. So this the capacity of 2.5 gigabit per second. And now the trending, they go to the up to the call the G.HSP or 50 gig. We call the G.HSP 50 gig, and recently the standard already approved that the 50 gig punya standard documents. Right, okay. So that's part of the some of the introductions. Probably some I would like to share in terms of the who drive this technology, and especially if we can see in terms of the access, the most of the, or I can say that 80%, 90% of the technology that to support access on the fiber is through the PON technology. So before that, I'll just give you, maybe some of you try what is the PON technology. So I just to share what's the basic PON technology itself. So PON technology is based on the TDM technology, meaning that we have the OLT equipment. So this equipment is located at the central office, and all from the OLT up to the customer premises, we have all the passive fiber. So there is no active element here. And then they just have like an optical splitter, which is that they split all the fiber connectivity from the exchange, and then split with up to, they have different splitting ratio, so they can go up to 64 splitter. So meaning that one single fiber or one fibers, they can, I think, cover up to 64 houses with the maximum distance up to 20 kilometer distance. So this is technology, this is something that changing, because previous technology, we have like point-to-point technology. So meaning that one single fiber to each of the customer. So let's say we have 1,000 customer. So either we have one fiber dedicated to each customer, or probably that we need to have an active element, which is that switch in the middle, which that when we talk about switch, so we need to have the power, and we need to make sure that they have good ventilation and so on. But with the new technology from the PON technology, so it drive in terms of the cost reductions very, I mean, we can see the lot of significant cost reductions at the fields, especially at the field side. So just based on the passive component. So I believe that the optical splitter is just very small. So, and then because of the passive, we can plug it anywhere. So in terms of the signaling itself, so from the downstream data, they provide the mechanism of the broadcast mode. So meaning that from the OLT, from the exchange, so they broadcast all the packet to the, let's say we have 64 customer per single fiber. So they broadcast all the 64 packets to all the customer. But only dedicated customer belong packet that belong to this ONU, we call the optical network unit. So they can receive and read their packet. So it comes like sama macam like our Astro. So these signals they broadcast, and then only the specific receiver can read the packet. But for the upstream side, because of they share the same fiber after the splitter, so they need to send a packet based on the TDM mode, TDMA, we call time domain multiplexing access. So we are only at the specific times, so the customer can send their packets to the OLT. So this is this in terms of the synchronization. So they have the specific technology that make it the PON technology is very one of the best technology in the access. So they are able to make sure that the synchronizations in place and there is no collisions after they combine the packet. So that's a basic technology of the PON, and why they have become the most, I can say that the most the preferred technology used by all the operators all around the world. So in terms of the high speed, we can see that now people start moving from the 2.5 gig and then to the 10 gig. And so I think inshallah, probably that this year Telkom also starts to introduce the 10G technology in their network. But we are doing in Team R&D, we are doing, I think last 5 years, we do some trial in, I think in Bangi, so with this technology. But I think it takes time. So because when we put like new technology, so we need to make sure that in terms of the requirement itself already, in terms of our investment and how we make sure that when we grow our network, so this become a seamless to the customer itself. So we can see all around the world, the trending, people start to see the not just bandwidth, but also in terms of the latency that becomes critical. So that's why I think people, a few countries start to, there's a certain country already moved to the 10G solution. There are a few countries that already doing some trials. And even Telkom Malaysia, I think we do like a few trial previously. And now I think probably this year, so we can start to have a new technologies. So meaning that this technology, if we can see, is based on the unified technology. So these are a few operators that have the rollout of the 10G solutions. And then we can see in terms of the technology itself, after the 10G, so in the middle they have like 25G, and then probably after 50G, they start to predict long-term research. They have like 100G PON and also some coherent PON technology. So I think recently Telkom Malaysia, we do some joint trials, just testing with our partner ZTE, and then we try to bring the 50G to here and doing some trial. But beyond that, they already have some research activity to have like 100 gigs to the access. And I think there's another technology they call coherent PON technology. So I think this is in terms of the why we think that we need beyond 22.5, beyond 10 gig. So because of the requirements that's come from the residential, small business, and also the enterprise itself that need to have like true 10 gig solution, and they need to make sure that to improve the resiliency. So we try to make sure that applicable solution to support this is something, for example, like a 25 gig or 50 gig, or probably that certain technology based on the point-to-point PON technology itself. And then we know that there's a few technology like 4G and also 5G is coming in. So to make sure that the critical requirement from this 5G is based on the latency and also some synchronization. So we need to make sure that whatever technologies that we bring in the future, to make sure that we are able to support with this kind of requirements. So I think I just go through, I think I have a few slides before we finish. So this is part of the technology that we have, like point-to-point technology in the SS. And then I think we start to have like GPON technology based on the point-to-multipoint, single fiber and shared by multiple fiber. But we also have like TWM PON. So this TWM PON is based on the NG-PON2 technology, which is that they have like multiple wavelength, and each wavelength carry 10 gigabit per second. So they can have like multiplexing technologies here. And then we have like a point-to-point WDM in terms of the virtual connectivity, but in this physical connectivity, we can still point-to-multipoint. So we can have like a dedicated wavelength to each of the customer. So this is based on the WDM, pure WDM technology. But we can see TWM is the combination of TDM plus WDM PON technology. So I think this is part of the challenge during the make sure in terms of when we try to push the technology. So we also need to make sure in terms of the component availability, in terms of the cost when they move from the TDM to TWM and also TWM. So this is some kind of the cost comparison in terms of the commodity dispersions that I think all of these things will impact in terms of the cost of the product itself, which is that cost is become the major factors to when we can see in terms of the successful of our any technology to be deployed in the access network. So I think basically that's part of my presentation. I don't know. I hope that I think some input can be taken from this. I have a few slides, but probably maybe we can have another second session after this. I think So, Bilal, I think any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Now we open the question for the audience. If someone have any question, may I know the no any question?
Please feel free. Any questions? I'm okay. You want to ask about your Unify or whatever?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shahril.
Waalaikumsalam.
Dr. Azlina here. Dr. Shahril, do you think that Malaysia is actually ready for 5G? Because we have all the technology for the devices, isn't it, for the PON? Right.
Yep.
But can it support the 5G basically? And what do you think about it?
Okay. So when we thought that, okay, about 5G, yeah, all the countries, they start to push the 5G because of the specific requirements. So they see that 5G can drive in terms of certain application that previously we cannot do with the current connectivity that we have. The most critical part when we push the 5G is it's not just bandwidth. So bandwidth, I believe that I think with the current technology, you can have 100 megabit per second, 200 megabit per second, even 1 gig. I think that's good enough for you to, I don't know, probably to stream your Netflix.
Agree.
So not really critical. So it's not just 5G, it's just we can have even 3G, previously 3G, 4G can support this the requirements. But the most critical part when they start to think about the IoT functions, they start to think about the AI functions. They start to think about how the cars, the autonomous car, and more probably that in the medical segments that they need to have like remote medicine, remote or probably the operation. They require the very precise and very accurate in terms of the timing. So they cannot afford in terms of the delay because each of the seconds delay will impact in terms of the, for example, cars, probably the tendency of the accidents. So they need to make sure the technology able to support this latency synchronization. So it's not really on the bandwidth. So it makes to me when we deploy the PON technologies, so any technology that comes in, so that's why if we can see that, for example, like 2.25 gig and 50 gigs, so they need to make sure that the technology behind when we develop this system able to support the requirements come from the 5G, because 5G is a mobile technology and we have the wired technology. So when we convergence the fixed wireless mobile activities, so both need to be seamless. So any technologies come from the 5G need to be able to carry through the fiber connectivity. So when we develop the standard for the 50 gig, so part of the main requirements to make sure that the synchronization latency, we need to make sure we are able to support the 5G requirements. So that's part of, but based on the current GPON technology, I can say there's not many applications of the 5G can be carried out. That's why we can see that a lot of the base station 5G, they're still using the point-to-point connectivity. That's a really high cost. So with the latest new technology comes in, so we hope that we are able to bring down the cost. Obviously, when we bring down the cost, the impact at the end goes to the consumer base. So I hope that's answered the questions.
Yes, very clear, Dr. Shahril. Speaking of that, basically, when you said that certain user only need this 5G, isn't it? Is it possible to, let's say, what we call that, provide this kind of service to the one who need that only, or they are using the same path actually?
Yeah, it's true. Which is that if we can see, like for example, like currently we have like 4G, and we just sunset 3G. So we shut down all the 3G and now just remain on the 4G. And based on the current technology of the 5G, we still need to have like, because the way that our design, we call it non-standalone 5G network, meaning that we still need to have like anchor band, or which is that is drive based on the 4G technologies. And then we have 5G. So currently, if I can say that when everywhere is covered by the 5G, so it depends on the user itself. Maybe I think in terms of the user, is very seamless for you, but it's more critical to the operator. And then right now in Malaysia, the operator of I think in fronting the 5G, they call it DMB. It's not really a telco. All the infrastructure is through the government, through they call the DMB, Digital National Berhad, and just the core network is belong to the telco. But telco right now is just provide the services, but all the infra actually is belong to the government. That's on the 5G network connectivity. So in terms of the user, so I believe that, like for example, like if there is a 5G, it's up to you. It depends on the application. What kind of application do you want to use? So if just a normal browsing, internet browsing, I think you can use either 4G or 5G. Yeah, because I think our smart home, we have the good intelligence to connect it with the best signals that they have. But if there is especially on the enterprise segment or probably the government sector, that they have a specific requirements that I need to have like a 5G with the certain requirement, because 5G they also have like 5G version like 15, 16, 17. And each of the versions, they have the different requirements in terms of the synchronization and latency. So like for example, like 17, so they need to have like a micro, or we call it ultra low latency requirement. So if let's say in the future, we have like certain application that require that. So there's a part of the infrastructure or probably technology that need to support with the application. So I can say that for the user is it kind of like a seamless for them. So either you want to browse but it's just critical for the certain user that want to have a certain application.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Shahril.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. I have only one question here. Based of your, presentation, you mentioned that look like the world going to be moved to the 5G, which is meaning maybe in 2025 or above. So is it when you are doing this one and go move to the 3G, you will be having the big difference in speed and everything on the, especially for fiber to the home, and also compared to other company. Now I know that you mentioned about only TM, but some of us we are not joined with the TM. So for the others is like time and other. Should we going to the same speed 2025 to would be and high speed 3G, or only TM they focusing for this start?
All right. Okay. No. We need to understand, because I think based on my previous presentation slide, the fiber connectivity in Malaysia is mainly majority, I think 70 or 80% is through the Telkom Malaysia. So even though like we have different player like Maxis or DG Times, so they provide the mobile service, the connectivity is at the end side, meaning that they have the base stations, and that base station currently maybe they have like 4G equipments, and maybe later we have that DMB that provide 5G equipments, but the backbone is through the fiber connectivity, and most of the backbone connectivity is belong to telco TM. So even though you have like Maxis or you have like Times, but they have like a few, like I think there's a few percent is belong to like Times and so on. But majority, I think 80% actually is come from the Telkom Malaysia. Yeah. So like for example, like we have Unify in our home, and we have like Maxis Mobile. So if we can see actually, even you use the Unify or you use the Maxis, actually majority of the fiber connectivity up to your device actually is belong to Telkom Malaysia.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Even if you can see that even the breakdown and so on. Yes, you call the Maxis, but the contractor is
with TM.
TM contractors come in.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm a person used the time, so I'm worried when I saw that.
The difference just for the time is the technology, they have their own fiber, but they are focusing more on the high-rise building.
I see.
Yeah, but set time, but they in terms of the coverage is not like compared to Telekom Malaysia. I think most of the fiber is I think Times around, I think 10%, something like that. Not so many.
Okay, barakallah fiik. Thank you very much. If there is any other question, brother and sister. Okay, if there is no more
I
questions.
have a question.
Yeah, yes, we come.
Assalamualaikum.
Munir, yeah.
Okay.
Waalaikumsalam.
I would like to ask regarding the fiber. Is there any new research on that TM will be interested in fiber optic? Because looking now, I don't know, is it matured already for TM, or what kind of research will you be interested in for fiber optic? Thank you.
You mean the fiber itself?
The fiber itself, or
physical fiber
anything
itself.
on the related to the fiber, maybe. Yes.
Okay, because I also my background also fiber, but more on the networking side, networks for connectivity. Basically, fiber is quite mature. I can say quite mature. But the most critical part, probably that research that interested to us is based on the current technology, current fiber that we use, able to support the high-speed connectivity. So if let's say we want to go for 50 gig, 100 gigs, what's the impact with the current fiber that we deploy? So believe that there is when we go beyond that 10 gig, we have start to have like PMD, CD, dispersions, impairment, a few other impairments. So that's something that we
What's
try
PMD? Sorry, I'm not from fiber.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I don't know. I'm just asking on behalf of my other teammates in the research group. They are doing research on fiber. So that's
okay, so they call the polarization mode dispersions, chromatic dispersions. So any kind of the impairments that I think when we push for the higher speed, in terms of the signal, the wavelength itself, they try to drifting. In terms of if we have the measurement tools, the eye diagrams start to close. So that's part of the research that we try to understand more toward like fiber optic. If I can see about the fiber itself. But beyond the fiber itself, I can say that I'm interested in terms of how we are able to support the cost-effective solutions. So any niche or angle that we can bring down in terms of to use any fiber or technology to bring down the cost in terms of how we operate in our network. Like for example, previously we have the issue of the splitting ratio of the fiber DP, because the one fibers and then we split by 8, for example, or 16. But maybe at that house, at the area, they require beyond that 16. So how we are able to provide to extend the connectivity of the fiber, maybe using the different components to add new components without we have a major constructions in terms of the fiber itself. So that's something I think we are very interested in. More toward like how to bring down the cost with the technology we have right now. So beside that is on the technology part. Technology part is what is based on what we are present right now. If we want to go beyond the 50 gig, 100 gig, maybe there is a certain, they call it coherence technology. That's something we are interested, but that one is more on the research, not really on the applications. I can say that more toward like a research activities for the future technology.
Okay, thank you
very much. But I think feel free to contact me. I think we can discuss further after this. And I'm very happy to support the UIA, because I'm also they call it AIP, the advisory panel. So
that's great. We have another meeting after this informal meeting, inshallah.
Inshallah, we try to support each other, inshallah.
All right, thank you.
Barakallah fiik, Dr. Muhammad. We are reaching now to the end of our session, but we would like to get the picture together, inshallah. Please, all of you, can you open your camera, please, to get the picture session?
Maybe you can stop sharing first, otherwise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think
Everybody
somebody
can
there.
on the camera.
Brother Shahna, is it okay?
The Shana's taking the photo.
Yeah. Can you tell us 1, 2, 3? You be ready? 1, 2. Another one. Yeah.
Finish?
Just wait for a while. Our
There's
done.
no sound
Okay.
from Dr. Shahnan.
No sound, but he's working. He's working.
It's working, yeah? Okay. Just kidding.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much
sir.
for all of you. Let us to conclude by the كفارة المجلس. Says كفارة المجلس. Thank you again, Dr. Muhammad, and I would like, inshallah, maybe we can call you for next time for, inshallah, in the same session, maybe months later or a few days, depending about our activity, inshallah. Barakallahu feek again.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I mean, session. We know more about what our future, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Barakallahu.
Thank you.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.